Welcome to the most amazing channel, where we dive deep into the wildest stories, mysteries, and moments in pop culture history. Today, we're tackling a fan-favorite topic, The Simpsons and their jaw-dropping predictions that somehow came true. For over 3 decades, this animated comedy has been more than just laughs. It's been a crystal ball into the future. From politics and technology to sports and global events, the writers of Springfield have shocked us time and again with eerie accuracy. So grab a donut, sit back, and let's explore the top 10 Simpsons predictions that actually happened. Prediction number 10, the Disney-Fox merger. Back in 1998, The Simpsons aired the episode When You Dish Upon a Star in Season 10. It's filled with Hollywood satire, but there's one blink and you'll miss it gag that turned out to be a jaw-dropping prophecy. In the episode, we see a sign outside Fox Studios that reads, "A division of Walt Disney Company." At the time, this was meant as a playful jab at Disney's ever-expanding entertainment empire. Nobody really thought it would happen. Fox was one of the biggest, most independent studios in Hollywood. Fast forward nearly 2 decades and the gag became a shocking reality. In 2017, Disney officially purchased 21st Century Fox in a massive $71 billion deal. That deal not only reshaped Hollywood, but it also brought The Simpsons under the Disney umbrella. Today, you can actually watch every episode of the show on Disney+, making the joke even more surreal. What started as a satirical throwaway line about corporate monopolies became one of the most significant media mergers of all time. The writers may have been poking fun at the possibility, but the real world caught up, and the joke was on us. This moment highlights how The Simpsons has a knack for satirizing trends so well that reality sometimes bends to match the cartoon. A gag about Mickey Mouse owning Fox became a headline that shook the industry. Prediction number 9, Donald Trump's presidency. Perhaps the most famous prediction of all time came in the Season 11 episode Bart to the Future, which aired in the year 2000. In this story, we get a glimpse into the future where Lisa has become president of the United States. While addressing her staff, she makes a passing comment. "We've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump." At the time, the line was played purely for laughs. The idea of Donald Trump as president was considered ridiculous. He was known mostly as a real estate mogul and a flamboyant celebrity. The gag worked because it was so over the top. But then, history took a strange turn. In 2016, Donald Trump shocked the world by winning the US presidential election. Suddenly, The Simpsons' 16-year-old joke didn't seem so funny anymore. It felt downright prophetic. And just as the episode implied, his presidency brought with it plenty of debates over the economy, politics, and controversy. Fans immediately resurfaced clips of the episode, and it went viral all over the internet. To this day, people point to it as the ultimate Simpsons prediction. What was once a punchline became one of the biggest political events of modern history. This prediction cemented The Simpsons as more than just entertainment. It became a cultural oracle. Whether it was blind luck, sharp satire, or a bizarre case of life imitating art, this moment proved that Springfield's strangest jokes sometimes have a way of coming true in the real world. Prediction number 8, Smartwatches. In the Season 6 episode Lisa's Wedding from 1995, the show takes us into a possible future where Lisa is grown up and engaged. Her fiancé, Hugh, casually uses his wristwatch as a communication device, essentially making a phone call from his watch. At the time, this was pure sci-fi. Most viewers saw it as a fun, futuristic gag, the kind of high-tech gadget you'd only expect in cartoons or James Bond movies. But fast forward 20 years, and suddenly the gag became reality. In 2015, Apple released the Apple Watch, bringing wearable communication into the mainstream. Other companies like Samsung and Fitbit soon followed, creating a global market for smartwatches. Today, millions of people walk around with miniature computers strapped to their wrists, capable of not just making calls, but also tracking fitness, monitoring heart rates, streaming music, and even paying for coffee with a quick tap. What's fascinating is that The Simpsons didn't just imagine wearable technology, it nailed the idea of wrist-based communication long before it existed. Of course, the show didn't predict the full range of features like GPS or advanced health apps, but the core concept was spot on. This prediction shows how The Simpsons often parodies futuristic tech that eventually inspires real innovation. What started as an outlandish cartoon joke in the 90s became one of the most iconic inventions of the 21st century. Once again, Springfield's writers proved they were years ahead of their time. Prediction number 7, the Shard in London. Believe it or not, Lisa's Wedding from 1995 gave us another jaw-dropping prediction, this time involving London's skyline. During one of the episode's futuristic sequences, we see Big Ben in the background, but right next to it stands a massive glassy skyscraper. At the time, it looked like an animator's random idea of futuristic architecture. Nobody gave it much thought, but in 2009, construction began on the Shard, a now iconic skyscraper in London that was completed in 2012. Standing at 1,016 feet tall, the Shard became one of Europe's tallest buildings and dominates the skyline in almost the exact spot shown in The Simpsons. The resemblance is uncanny, slender, jagged, and towering directly beside Big Ben, just like in the animated scene from over a decade earlier. Fans couldn't help but connect the dots. Was this a wild coincidence? Or did the animators have some incredible foresight into London's architectural future? While it's unlikely that the writers knew about specific blueprints, the fact that their imagined skyscraper so closely mirrors a real-world landmark is hard to ignore. This prediction showcases The Simpsons' knack for world building. Even when they toss in background details, those details sometimes end up reflecting reality years later. Whether by chance or by a kind of artistic intuition, the show managed to draw a building in 1995 that looked strikingly similar to one of London's most recognizable modern structures. Sometimes it's not the jokes or the dialogue, but the subtle animations that reveal how eerily predictive The Simpsons can be. Prediction number 6, Ebola outbreak. In the 1997 episode Lisa's Sacks, Marge tries to cheer up a sick Bart by offering him a book to read. The book's title? Curious George and the Ebola Virus. At the time, the joke barely registered with most viewers. Ebola wasn't a household name, cases were rare, and the virus wasn't widely discussed outside of scientific or medical circles. For most fans, it felt like one of those random, darkly funny references the show was known for. But years later, that throwaway gag gained an eerie new meaning. In 2014, West Africa suffered a devastating Ebola outbreak, which quickly became a global health crisis. News coverage was everywhere, and suddenly, the Simpsons clip resurfaced online. Fans were shocked at how a single cartoon book title from the 90s seemed to foreshadow one of the deadliest epidemics in modern history. Was this a case of brilliant foresight, or just coincidence? Some argue the writers simply picked Ebola because it sounded obscure and unsettling, which made it perfect for a joke. But the fact that it later aligned with a worldwide medical emergency is unsettling nonetheless. This prediction shows how The Simpsons often shines a spotlight, sometimes unintentionally, on things most people overlook. In this case, a virus that was barely in the public eye ended up dominating headlines nearly 2 decades later. Whether you see it as random luck or sharp writing, it's hard not to shiver at how chillingly accurate this reference turned out to be. Prediction number 5, autocorrect fails. Back in 1994, The Simpsons took a jab at early tech in the episode Lisa on Ice. In one quick scene, the school bully Kearney types a threatening note into his Apple Newton PDA, writing, "Beat up Martin." But when the device processes the text, it hilariously autocorrects it to, "Eat up Martha." The gag was simple, mocking the clunky and unreliable nature of early digital assistants. At the time, the Newton was Apple's first attempt at handheld technology, and it was notoriously criticized for poor handwriting recognition and buggy software. The joke worked, because everyone knew the Newton wasn't exactly reliable, but what nobody realized was how prophetic this joke would become for the future of smartphones. Fast forward to the 2000s and beyond, and autocorrect fails became a global phenomenon. From embarrassing text messages to hilarious social media screenshots, nearly everyone has been betrayed by autocorrect at some point. Even Apple engineers have admitted that "Eat up Martha" became an inside reference during iPhone development, proof that the Simpsons joke hit so close to home that it actually haunted the people designing future Apple products. This prediction wasn't about world events, it was about everyday frustrations, yet it's one of the best examples of how The Simpsons nailed a piece of technology that would eventually define digital communication. What started as a jab at an outdated PDA evolved into a timeless representation of our collective struggles with autocorrect. Sometimes the future doesn't arrive with flying cars. It arrives with your phone turning "see you soon" into something wildly embarrassing. Prediction number 4. Siegfried and Roy tiger attack. In 1993, The Simpsons aired the episode Springfield during Season 5. The story revolved around the town embracing gambling, and in true Vegas fashion, the writers included a parody of the world-famous magician duo Siegfried and Roy. On stage, their cartoon counterparts put on a glitzy show with their white tiger, but in a dark twist, the tiger suddenly snaps and attacks its trainer in front of the horrified audience. At the time, it was played as over-the-top satire, poking fun at the dangers of using wild animals in entertainment. But fast forward to 2003, and the joke became a shocking reality. During a live performance in Las Vegas, Roy Horn was mauled by a white tiger on stage, suffering life-threatening injuries. The attack effectively ended Siegfried and Roy's legendary act, stunning the entertainment world. Suddenly, a cartoon gag from a decade earlier looked disturbingly prophetic. Even the show's writers admitted they were rattled by how closely reality mirrored their parody. They never expected their exaggerated joke to unfold in real life with such tragic accuracy. This moment demonstrates a darker side of The Simpsons' predictions. Sometimes satire hits uncomfortably close to reality. What was intended as a humorous jab at spectacle-driven shows instead foreshadowed one of the most infamous incidents in Vegas history. It's one thing to predict gadgets or politics. It's another to parody something so extreme, only for it to come true in heartbreaking fashion. Prediction number 3. The FIFA scandal. One of The Simpsons' more recent predictions came in the 2014 episode, You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee. In this story, Homer is recruited to be a referee for the World Cup, but in classic Simpsons fashion, things take a bizarre turn. The episode portrays FIFA executives as hopelessly corrupt, with bribery and shady dealings running rampant behind the scenes. At the time, it seemed like a playful exaggeration of the world's most popular sport. But just 1 year later, in 2015, reality caught up. Dozens of high-ranking FIFA officials were arrested in a massive corruption scandal. The charges included bribery, fraud, and money laundering, and the scandal rocked the soccer world to its core. Fans immediately pointed back to The Simpsons episode, amazed at how accurately it had captured the situation, down to the idea of officials being publicly arrested. What makes this prediction so jaw-dropping is the timing. Unlike other predictions that took decades to come true, this one happened within a single year. It was almost as if the writers had insider knowledge of the storm brewing inside FIFA. Of course, the truth is that FIFA had long faced rumors of corruption, and the writers simply pushed the idea to its extreme. But still, the fact that reality mirrored their satire so quickly cemented this as one of the show's sharpest predictions. It's a reminder that The Simpsons doesn't just parody random events, it often exposes cracks in real-world institutions before the rest of us notice. Prediction number 2. Nobel Prize winner Bengt Holmstrom. Sometimes The Simpsons' predictions aren't loud and flashy. They're hidden in tiny background details. A perfect example is from the 2010 episode Elementary School Musical. In this story, a quick gag shows Homer, Krusty, and others betting on the outcomes of the Nobel Prize. Each character holds up cards with different nominees written on them. On Martin's card, eagle-eyed viewers spotted the name Bengt Holmstrom. At the time, Holmstrom was a respected economist, but hardly a household name. He wasn't exactly the type of person viewers expected to see referenced in a cartoon, and most people didn't even notice the joke when the episode first aired. But then, 6 years later in 2016, the prediction came true. Bengt Holmstrom actually won the Nobel Prize in economics for his contributions to contract theory. Suddenly, that tiny background gag went from being an obscure detail to one of the show's most specific and accurate predictions. What makes this so remarkable is the precision. Unlike predicting a general trend like smartphones or corruption scandals, this wasn't a broad guess. It was a hyper-specific call-out of a single individual who later won one of the most prestigious awards in the world. While skeptics say the writers may have chosen Holmstrom simply because he was already considered a strong candidate, the fact that they picked the right name remains impressive. It's another example of how The Simpsons sometimes sneaks in details that turn out to be eerily prophetic. Prediction number 1. 9/11 foreshadowing. Perhaps the most unsettling prediction in The Simpsons history comes from the 1997 episode, The City of New York versus Homer Simpson. In one scene, Lisa holds up a magazine that reads, "New York $9." Behind the $9 is a picture of the Twin Towers, which together create the visual impression of 9/11. At the time, this was just a throwaway gag advertising cheap bus trips to New York City. But after the tragic events of September 11, 2001, fans revisited the episode and were stunned by the eerie visual connection. What had once been a meaningless cartoon detail now looked like a chilling foreshadowing of one of the darkest days in American history. Most people agree that this was pure coincidence. After all, the writers couldn't possibly have predicted the attacks. But the unsettling imagery has kept this moment alive in conspiracy circles for decades. Some argue it was too strange to be random, while others dismiss it as an example of people connecting dots that were never meant to align. Regardless of intent, this remains one of The Simpsons' most controversial predictions. It shows how even a small visual detail can take on entirely new meaning in the shadow of real-world events. Unlike other entries on this list, this one isn't funny, it's haunting. It's a stark reminder that while The Simpsons is primarily about satire and comedy, sometimes the randomness of its gags can become disturbing when mirrored by reality. And that's why this prediction stands as one of the most talked about moments in the show's long history. And there you have it. 10 times The Simpsons seem to peer into the future. From presidents to pandemics, skyscrapers to scandals, the show continues to amaze us with its bizarre accuracy. Whether these are coincidences, clever satire, or something stranger, one thing is clear. The Simpsons has cemented its place not just in pop culture, but in prophecy. Which of these predictions shocked you the most? Did we miss one of your favorites? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more mind-blowing videos.